signing of the Employment Equity Bill by President Cyril Ramaphosa continues to receive mixed reactions.
It allows the Labour Minister to set specific equity targets for different sectors. Now, the President says it will promote diversity, equality and transformation in the workplace. However, the DA and Trade Union Solidarity saying that the bill is unconstitutional. It will keep businesses small and further cost thousands of jobs.
Concerns that have been raised that it's not transformative, this bill, but rather will further entrench those racial divisions that exist within South Africa.
The ANC, supposedly a non-racial organization, has turned to race-based legislation in determining who's allowed to work in which company.
Favouring the needs of the elite few instead of easing the suffering of beneficiaries.
Some saying it amounts to racial quotas. They accuse government of wanting to change the act to sideline whites, coloureds and Indians.
The new rules mandate bosses to take steps to achieve equity targets or face financial penalties.
The bill gives the minister too much power, and in fact, in light of how governments fail to implement BEE policy, that this is not the way to go.
Numerical targets is exactly the very same thing as quotas. So the question is this not our Umzansi? That is what I'm asking. Are we not part of South Africa?
Mzansi Afrika, Molweni, Sani Bonani, Goeiemorgen, good morning and awe. My name is Nazli Sharif, and today is an important day for all South Africans as the country unites to fight the ANC's Race Quotas Act. This act will divide South Africans by the color of our skin. This is unconstitutional, it is wrong, and it has no place in democratic South Africa. Today, DA Leader John Steenhuisen leads our march against these racist quotas. South Africans from all walks of life have joined us today to march to Parliament to stand up against this injustice. Like and share this broadcast with your friends and your family right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the conversation online using the hashtag #StopRaceQuotasMarch. Let's unite to rescue South Africa. Joining me in studio today is Solly Malatsi, the DA's national spokesperson, Matt Cuthbert, the DA's head of policy, and Deirdre Bartman, Deputy Chief Whip in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Good morning and welcome to studio. How are you feeling today, Matt?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited about the march, and I'm looking forward to our members getting out on the ground and registering their protest against this atrocious piece of legislation.
Absolutely. Solly?
Yeah, like Matt, I'm looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to see the numbers that we are able to pull in support of this march and just seeing the opposition to this piece of legislation.
Yeah, Deirdre, we can see so many people gathered today.
Nazli, I'm excited. I'm exhilarated to see so many diverse, united South Africans marching for a cause. And the particular cause today is for fairer jobs and it's for fairer access to water. And to just see the amount of people on the ground just shows how seriously South Africans are taking today.
Yeah, you can see the diversity in the crowd, everybody coming out to support against these race quotas. Matt, let's get straight into it. How did these Race Quotas Act come about?
So, new regulations were gazetted by the Minister for Labour and Employment, Thulas Nxesi, in May of this year. And basically what this set of regulations aims to do is across 18 sectors and industries set targets, or racial targets, for companies that have more than 50 employees. So that's where we're at today, and that's why we're standing up against these regulations.
Yeah, Deirdre, we know that 600,000 jobs could be lost because of this Race Quotas Act.
Nazli, the Employment Equity Amendment Act really gives arbitrary powers to the national minister to make racial quota determinations. And this will particularly affect the private sector employers who employ 50 or more employees. And certain targets in certain sectors are just completely ridiculous. For example, when you look at targets relating to Indian persons, whether you're male or female, a small business of 50 people will not even be able to employ one Indian person, because 1 out of 50 is 2%, and 2% currently exceeds the target in these current regulations. If you look at what the regulations are proposing for the Northern Cape, the Northern Cape will essentially be punished, Northern Cape businesses, if they employ too many black women, if they go over the target of 15.8%. If you look at Limpopo and Mpumalanga, there's a target of 0% for coloured persons. I mean, how is that okay? When you look at Gauteng, for example, there's a possibility of 73% of coloured persons losing their job.
Wow.
I mean, Nazli, I'm a constituency head of Laingsburg in the Central Karoo, and my constituents are more than 90% coloured and more than 96% Afrikaans. So what do I tell my constituents if I had to pass a bill like this? It seems like before every single election, the ANC comes with its populist tendencies, and this election is no different. We're coming with the four horsemen of the apocalypse, we're coming with the expropriation bill, we're coming with the Bella bill, we're coming with the NHI, and now we're coming with the employment equity, because the ANC truly has nothing left to steal in our country.
Yeah. Sally, the ANC calls this act progressive. What a joke. Is it really progressive?
Nestle, it's quite the opposite. There's nothing progressive in the text, there's nothing progressive in the intention of the bill, and there's nothing progressive in the outcomes that it seeks to achieve. In fact, what it will do is to divide South Africans in workplaces across racial lines. It will put employers or businesses who employ over 50 individuals in a very difficult position. And most of them, unfortunately, if they were to comply with this, will resort to a box-ticking exercise that affects the quality of their labor force. And the most important thing to any entrepreneur or any employer is you want to appoint competent people, you want skilled individuals, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race, because ultimately it is about the best interest of the business and the skills that they bring into that business. Failure to do so will mean that these businesses will now have to go out of their way, scrambling in order to meet targets, instead of focusing on their core business, which is, to lead manufacturing, their manufacturers, or to deliver what their core business is. And what Detri also said initially is very important here, because we can't have a situation wherein you limit to employees based on race or gender who they must appoint, because their consideration is what skills or competencies does their business need.
Yeah. Solly, the DA is being called anti-redress because of our opposition to this bill. What would you say to people that say that?
Well, Nestle, that is pure ANC spin. And I call it that way because it serves the ANC to antagonize every effort to expose its spin, because what they are doing is to manipulate disadvantaged individuals and to mislead the public into thinking that these interventions are put in place for somehow to level the playing field of economic opportunities. And this is not the reality. So the DA's efforts to ensure that there is no legislation that prioritizes preference for race over people's competencies and skills, it is far more progressive than what the ANC is introducing here.
I couldn't agree with you more. Matt, I want to get into this. When we spoke about it off air, my mind was blown. Not only does the ANC want to bring race quotas for employment, they now want to have race quotas for access to water, a basic human right. What on earth?
Well, this is ANC racial engineering at its finest. And basically what the draft regulations aim to do is to introduce a regulation which states that if you have not allocated 20 to 75% of your water rights to what they class as a black individual, then you as a South African will be denied access to water. So basically the provision of basic services is now determined on the color of your race. And if I've ever heard of something more ludicrous, I cannot think of it at the moment, but it's just absolutely ridiculous that this is what the ANC is trying to do in the run-up to election. And maybe to touch on a point that Solly raised earlier, the ANC often calls it anti-redress, but what the ANC offers South Africans is trickle-down redress. So they assume because you put somebody on a board or you give them shares in a company that somehow via osmosis that is then going to trickle down to people on the ground. And the fact is that the large majority of South Africans find themselves in poverty, are recipients of inequality because of the ANC's failed policies over the last 30 years or so. And that's what we need to address. And when we realize that those are the root issues that need to be addressed, then we can stop looking at things like identity markers such as race, gender, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Solly, the march today is moving from Darling Street to Parliament. Why are we going specifically to Parliament? What is the big deal with going to Parliament?
It is quite important to go to Parliament, Nestle, because Parliament is the seat of the legislature. It is ultimately where the proposals for any act will ultimately be passed. And we know for a fact that the ANC has a majority in Parliament, and they always resort to their parliamentary majority in order to railroad whatever it is that they wish to happen in our country. So it is quite important that any opposition to the laws that are being proposed in our country, we take the fight to Parliament. And that is why we've mobilized, DA members, we have mobilized members of civil society and the public in general to go to Parliament, because there are members of Parliament who are ANC politicians who are members of communities, and they live amongst members of communities. So we need to exert the pressure on them so that if they do have any conscience, if they do have any political sanity remaining, they can see that the pressure against the opposition against these regulations is so high that the logical thing to do is to withdraw them.
Please make sure you like and comment on this thread, share it with your friends and family so that you and they can be part of the conversation. I'm told we're heading now straight to the ground. We have Karabo ready to take it. Karabo, over to you.
My name is Karabo Lerato Khakau. Get to Adia Africa, Manana Mosote and Akasivili. Mukubu Mamutata Mutiveri, Kubu Kubu, Ntama Rota Ravone. We are coming to you live here at the DA-led Stop Race Quotas March in the streets of Cape Town. And it is absolutely amazing to see so many South Africans united in our diversity, coming together to take a stand and say oppression not in this lifetime. So, I mean, it's odd, right? We are 29 years into a democratic dispensation, yet here we are again. The ANC wants to tell us where we can live and where we can work, and that is wrong, which is ironic, right? Because they want to police hard-won democratic rights that are supposed to be a given for South Africans. So today we are going to be unpacking just this problem, and joining me for the first session, the first conversation, is our DA Western Cape Provincial Leader, Tertius Simmers. Tertius, thank you for being here this morning. Tell us firstly, 29 years into a democracy, we are here. How did we get here?
Well, firstly, good morning, Karab, and good morning to all of our viewers. Goeiemorgen, Molweni, Salam alaikum. Now, indeed, 29 years post the birth of our country's democracy, one would have thought that the debate and the discussion would be about opportunities for all. But yet, the irony is we have seen in 29 years that the party that professes to have liberated us is now actually enforcing and reinforcing what apartheid did to our people. And the place where we are standing today, District 6, ironically, was a community affected by the segregation laws. And the fact that a new law will now determine where we must live to ensure that we can get work is nothing worse than exactly what apartheid did to us as the minority in the country, but above all for those of us here in the Western Cape. And that is the irony, because we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years an increase in unemployment. We have seen an increase in unemployment across all racial spectrums. So as much as the ANC are professing to be doing this to ensure more opportunities, they are stifling opportunity, but above all, they are entrenching all of our people in poverty. And genoeg is genoeg. Enough is enough. We can't afford these racial quotas. It's killing our people and it's entrenching them in poverty.
I think you're absolutely right. And let's speak about the minority groups in South Africa, specifically coloured and Indian people. We have political parties such as the Patriotic Alliance that claims that it is there for minorities. But then on the other hand, you have people that argue that a vote for the Patriotic Alliance actually is an endorsement vote for the ANC. What do you have to say to such logic?
Well, indeed, a vote for the Patriotic Alliance is actually a vote for the ANC, and a vote for the ANC, well, we know it's a vote for poverty. And in our province, you can see the dual-headed monster of these two parties working together, but above all, capitalizing on our people's poor living conditions where they are currently, because the Patriotic Alliance is in government with the ANC and another not so good party, Good, who's also another version of the ANC in our province. So we see these tripartite parties governing our people into poverty. Just ask the people of Nyasa. Just ask the people of Theewaterskloof. Ask the people of Beaufort West where the so-called pool is and what happened to the Dubai in the Central Karoo. Ask those people, but above all, ask the people in the Central Karoo district themselves. So indeed, as much as the PA professes to stand for the minority grouping, they are actually selling out the minority grouping, and we see that in action in our province, but also ask our brothers and sisters in Gauteng, where they've literally given back Gauteng and key metros in Gauteng to the ANC. And there's nothing worse that you can do than offer up your voters for a piecemeal deal at the table. So the reality is coming to all our voters. And our minorities must realize that the DA is a party for all. That is where we differ. We are the antithesis of what the PA professes to be, because we are a party for all, we govern for all, and in the Western Cape we can show that. And with the mayor of the city of Cape Town coming here, he will tell you, we even govern here for everybody together.
Now we're joined by the mayor of the city of Cape Town himself, GHL, Mayor Jordan Lewis. Thank you for being here with us today. So we've already had a conversation about minority groupings and how they are affected by this, right? But let's talk, I want to hear from you. So a lot of conversations around the quality of life in the Western Cape and for Capetonians is always centered around how you would say we live in a different country altogether. So the ANC is out here trying to divide us on racial tones, but we are here building a city of hope, and we're doing this outside racial quotas. How do we get that right, Jordan?
Well, it's so nice to be with you, Karabo. So nice to be with you, Tertius. And great to be with all the viewers at home and everyone here at the march. The way that we do that is by just focusing on capability and competence. We make sure that everyone is hired for their ability to actually serve people who live in communities, who live in poverty, and to slowly but surely work to improve their lives over time. And that's the only thing that we care about, is how are you going to be able to do your job in government? Not what your race is, what your background is. All of those other things are not relevant. Not who you vote for, actually. Not what your political loyalty is. Can you do the job? That's the most important thing. And until South Africa gets that right, we won't be able to build out of the deep hole that we are in as a country.
Everybody agrees, you're absolutely right. But then, on the other hand, you have people that say that whenever the DA says the DA gets things done, it's never for poor communities. We don't get things done for poor communities. What do you have to say about that as a mayor?
Well, we are just working day and night in Cape Town to show that is not the case. We are pouring our efforts, our time, our sweat, our tears into poorer communities to improve the quality of life there. That's why we're in government. That's what motivates us. That's what gets us up in the morning. So, of course, there are far too many people in the Western Cape and in Cape Town who live in incredibly tough conditions. Poverty is massive in South Africa. 35% of our country lives below the international poverty line, which is $1. So there's lots of poverty in South Africa. But we know that we can either sit on our hands and accept that people are going to live like that forever, or we can try slowly to build and improve and get better quality of life. So when we pour money and resources into infrastructure in poor communities, better sewer infrastructure, better roads, more public transport, even not infrastructure but safety money to improve safety in those communities, it is because the thing that motivates us in our heart is improving the quality of those people's lives.
You're absolutely right, and the experience here in the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape speaks for itself. Indeed, we are getting things done. Tertius, let me bring you in here, right? So, you are going to be delivering an address later on. What can people at home expect from you? What do you want to tell people in the lead up to 2024?
Well, there's three basic things. The day of racial quotas are gone.
Yes.
Employ people on competency. Secondly, we need to get the ANC as far below 50% as we can. The DA Western Cape has a massive contribution, and we are committed to ensuring that, because we do believe in the Moonshot Pact. We do believe that we can rescue South Africa, and towards 2024, I think thirdly, it's that our voters do need to realize this is the only party that cares for them, and we are a party for them. But above all, on the road to 2024, like Jordan says, where the DA governs, in the city, in other municipalities, we actually deliver services for all, irrespective of which party you belong to. And it's time that we vote with our hearts, not with our minds, because we're voting for the future. And that is what today is all about. If you allow the ANC to continue what they are doing, we are touching on the future of my kids, your kids, and all our kids. And too many people in apartheid fought for equality and freedom for all, not for some elite clique to benefit.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely right. So, okay, last bite from you, Jordan.
Yeah.
So we have national and provincial elections coming up in 2024. What is your message to every South African that's still wondering what they have to do to turn the tide around?
Well, let me start in this province where we are, the Western Cape. The only province that is giving people a sense that we can get out of this as South Africa, that we can move forward still together as a country, as a nation, as a society, is this province. So we are passionate in the city of Cape Town of making sure that this provincial government is re-elected with an even bigger majority in the Western Cape. And if you live in the Western Cape, we ask you to please give your confidence, your support, your vote to the DA in next year's election. But actually, wherever you live in South Africa, what we have here, what we are doing here in the Western Cape, in the city of Cape Town, in so many other municipalities, we can do it where you live as well. We can start to deal with the issues that you face in your municipality, in your province. But to do that, you have to register and you have to vote blue in next year's election. And that's my request to everyone.
Thank you. There you have it from Tertius Simmis and Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis. The message is simple. We can build a Free State, a Limpopo, Mpumalanga in every province of hope where the DA gets things done for you. So that is it from the ground for now. Back to you in studio, Nazli.
Thank you, Karabo. I am having some FOMO for not being on the ground. The energy looks amazing, but we are doing serious business. We are on the ground today to march against the ANC race quotas and say free access to jobs. Solly, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that were outstanding that Jordan said, and I think it's been a key driver for the performance of both the city of Cape Town and the provincial government, is about employing people based on competence and capability. And far too many people, even analysts, often wonder, like, how does the DA get, the level of performance in delivering service the way we do? It's mostly because we've got the right political leadership, but also in the appointment of the civil service that drives drives the delivery in those governments. They are appointed on competence and capability. That then translates into the level of performance that you see over time every year in high levels of delivering basic services, electrification, waste removal, refuse removal, provision of access to water. And that is just about the quality of good governance and the impact that it makes in people's lives.
Yeah, that is key, having the right people in the right jobs, doing the right thing. Deirdre, we saw crowds around your mayor, as you like to put it, and the Western Cape leader.
Yes, Nasli, I also saw some familiar faces in the background. Ek sien Jocelyn Johnson het al die pad van Kannaland gekom om na hierdie march te gekom in die Kaap. En wat ek wil sê, Nasli, is sy ernstig gelyk daar so in die agtergrond. Want ons het nie gekom om tande te tel nie. Ons het gekom om slange te vat met die parlement, because the people of parliament, the lawmakers, are not doing their job. They're sitting here and passing bad laws. And something that our provincial leader Tertiary Simmers spoke about was about, when you look at the Western Cape, look at the municipalities where we're not governing well. Look at those and ask yourself, who is governing there? Who is governing there? Because the PA is giving their votes to the ANC in those municipalities. As we sit here today, the Standing Committee on Local Government of the province is in my constituency in Laingsburg to ask them, why is your audit outcome so bad? They are going to Kannaland, they've been to Beaufort West, they're in Laingsburg, and these are the problem children in the Western Cape, and they are not run by the Democratic Alliance. When you look at them, when you look at Democratic Alliance governance, you see unqualified audits. When you look at the problem children, there's adverse, there's disclaimers. Sometimes the auditors don't even know how to be able to inspect their documents. And voters are going to move with their feet. But I'm also going to ask voters, don't just move to your feet to the Western Cape or to municipalities where there's good governance. Also register to vote DA in 2024. It doesn't help we're complaining in the church and we're complaining in the tavern and we're complaining at the dinner table, but we're not picking up the phone to phone our local representatives, to phone our members of parliament, to tell them that this is bad law and we do not want it passed.
Yeah, Matt, Deirdre said so lovely, we are not here to count teeth, we are here to catch the snakes. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with the sentiment that Gayton McKenzie is definitely a snake, and I think maybe another analogy to use is that a wolf in sheep's clothing. They try and use populist messaging, they try and curry favor with particular racial groupings. But at the end of the day, as we saw in the Karoo District Municipality, they didn't serve people that they claimed to stand for. And I think it just goes to show you how opportunistic all of these race merchants are and how much they are in the ANC's pocket. A number of these smaller parties that have coalesced around the ANC are merely there as mouthpieces for the ANC. And I think voters need to recognize the fact that that's what they're there to do. And we need to reject those kinds of inroads into the Western Cape. We have a province, we have many cities and small municipal areas that are some of the best run places in the country. And I don't think that voters need to forsake that by voting for someone like the PA.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at the crowds, and what I see is diverse South Africans from all across the Western Cape. In fact, all across South Africa, coming today, standing together, uniting to say enough is enough. We need proper access to jobs, fair access to jobs, and we are saying no to the ANC race quotas. Charlie, let's get into it. We heard the Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis speak about how Cape Town is empowering communities, but the DA has a track record of fighting against injustice, right?
Absolutely. We do have a very long history of fighting injustice, and what we have been able to do over the years is to fight it in different ways, whether through the court actions that the DA has taken, over the years in fighting against similar laws like these ones that have the potential to divide our country across racial racial lines, but also by leveraging where we are governing in order to restore the dignity of people through ensuring that good governance translates into better life outcomes for the residents in those areas. And it is because of that good governance and the sound financial management and the clean audit outcomes that Deidre was speaking about that we are able to manage our resources so well that we are able to cater and look after vulnerable residents who do not have the means to look after themselves in order to live the lives that they value. You will realize across the board that the city of Cape Town, the Western Cape provincial government has the highest levels of, access to basic services, access, road maintenance, for instance, the spending levels that we're doing on infrastructure alone to ensure that the quality of life is at a such level that is unmatched across the country. And what those simple acts of governing do is, because we are able to do the simple things simple, they attract the investment that is then needed in order for economic prosperity to thrive in the province. And this sets us apart because when investors come to Cape Town, they know that the taps will be running, they know that the roads are maintained well, they know that the infrastructure is solid, and that is an enabling environment for economic growth and job creation to take place.
Absolutely, Solly. Matt, we're from Joburg, and we've gotten the skill where we dodge potholes. It's a skill that we've had to pick up because the roads is a mess. So when you speak about, the service delivery here in Cape Town, we can see it. It's not just words, nice words that sound nice. It's actual reality that we can see. I just want to remind everybody at home that we have some incredible speeches coming up shortly. So keep it locked and make sure to join the conversation by liking and commenting on this broadcast. Matt, you wanted to add?
Yes. So, firstly, my constituents sitting out there in Ekurhuleni and not Johannesburg, I need to correct that. As much as we in Cape Town and people from Cape Town think that everything north of Cape Town is Johannesburg, it in fact isn't. So I thought it's just important to put that on the record. I'm proudly from Ekurhuleni and glad to... East Rand. Best Rand, actually.
Okay.
Best Rand. Yeah, so I think... the key element behind what our difference is as a party versus that of the ANC is the fact that we stand for non-racialism, whereas the ANC claims to stand for non-racialism, but in fact they use a metric according to multiracialism. And the difference is that we as the DA look at people as individuals. We don't think that they are envoys of their race or that their race determines what their circumstances will be in life, whether it determines their intelligence, their aptitude, their beliefs. Everyone is an individual, and we recognize the primacy of the individual. And I think that's the key, difference between ourselves and that of the governing party. And in our constitution, it's enshrined that we are a non-racial South Africa where we don't look at people on the basis of their skin, but rather we judge them on the content of their character. And I really feel as if laws and regulations like this are in total contradiction and are the antithesis of what our constitution is. And that just shows you how badly the ANC, have fallen over the last 29 years, that they've actually now, decided to opt for race politics instead of actually trying to bring South Africans together, unite South Africans, and make sure that we have one shared common vision and purpose as a country. And I think, if you look at many other countries around the world, the one key thing that they have in common is that sense of unity and purpose. And I feel as if us as South Africa as a country are losing that sense of unity and purpose because our politicians are trying to divide us on racial lines. They're trying to interfere where they shouldn't interfere, where we should live, where we should work. And these are really the things that break down a society and, tear those very carefully woven, threads to try and create a South Africa that is as diverse as what we are.
Absolutely. It's that old idea of divide and conquer that we are saying, no, we don't accept it. Deirdre, numbers don't lie. You can try and spin political jargon as much as you can, but when it comes to the numbers, that is what it is. The Western Cape has the lowest unemployment rate in the entire country. And going back to what Solly says, it just shows that you don't need race quotas to empower people, right?
You know, Naz, last week we came out of a budget committee in the province where the provincial treasury was doing their general, quarter financial and non-financial performance feedback. And the pre-audited outcomes for the Western Cape for the past financial year shows that we've spent 99.3% of our budget.
Wow. Incredible.
When you look at the departments such as education, when you look at the departments, the previous Department of Public Works, they have over 99%, almost 100% expenditure on their budgets, which includes infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, in the previous budget that came in the beginning of the year from National, what we saw was that the Gauteng and Western Cape provinces got rollover money for education infrastructure, because in the Western Cape in the previous financial year we actually spent 100% of our education infrastructure budget, to such an extent that they rolled over money from the Eastern Cape and other provinces to provinces such as Gauteng and the Western Cape in order to spend it. And yet we still see higher infrastructure budgets being allocated for the new financial year for provinces such as the Eastern Cape. But coming back to the statistics, if you don't want to believe the Democratic Alliance when it comes to unemployment statistics, believe Stats SA. Yeah. Believe the quarterly labour survey, force survey that came out for Q1 of 2023, which particularly said that the Western Cape had the biggest year-on-year change in employment with an increase of 15.7%. It equates to 360,000 new jobs in the last year and 62,000 created in the last quarter alone. If you break it down by sector, if you look at agriculture, for example, 47,000 jobs were created in the Western Cape in agriculture in the last year, compared to the net total created nationally of 43,000. When you look at trade, 113,000 jobs were created in the Western Cape over the same period. And this results in the Western Cape having the lowest expanded unemployment rate in the country. It decreased by 0.9 percentage points, and we now sit at 25.9% over the last quarter. If you want to look at comparisons, this is a full 16.5 percentage points lower than the national average, and it is 13.7 percentage points lower than the next highest competitor, which is Gauteng province. And Nazli, when we look at these figures, I don't want us just to look into the numbers. I don't want us just to look into the statistics. I want us to acknowledge the programs like the Western Cape Red Tape Reduction Unit that have assisted more than 11,000 businesses in dealing with bureaucratic obstacles since its inception in 2012. In the past financial year, the unit had a resolution rate of 89%, showing that the Western Cape government is committed to creating business-friendly regulatory environment. But it's not just the Western Cape. It's when you look at the city of Cape Town, they launched the Ease of Doing Business Index recently under the MACO member James Force in Economic Development and Tourism. And one of the key reasons for this particular, and I was at the launch with all the businesses there, and it was a diverse crowd of businesses as well. Small, medium, big businesses employing South Africans, employing Western Cape people, employing people of the city of Cape Town. And the things that this Ease of Doing Business Index was saying is, how do we cut the red tape regarding building approvals? How do we cut the red tape in making sure that you get your electricity connections quicker? How do we cut the red tape to get your clearance certificates quicker? How do we cut the red tape so you can get your business permits and your informal trading permits quicker? Those are the things that City of Cape Town people and people in the Western Cape are concerned about. They are concerned about the stages of load shedding that we can save them from when we look at load shedding. When we look at, for example, the Western Cape Small, Medium, Micro Enterprises Booster Fund that was implemented. Since its inception, it's assisted over 860 businesses, sustained 4,977 jobs, and 651 were created. And this year again, we are budgeting for more than 7 million rand for the Booster Fund to make sure that small and medium enterprises, particularly women, particularly youth, those who are focused on exporting, and those especially within the township-based economy, are able to keep their doors open.
Yeah, Matt, I want to go to you quickly. I know Karabo Karabo is ready for us on the ground. But quickly, can you tell us about the DA's proposed social impact bill in Parliament that will scrap the job-killing triple BEE? Where does it come from? What is it about?
Sure.
Please tell us.
So, earlier this year, our Shadow Minister for Trade, Industry and Competition, Dean McPherson, introduced this bill. And basically what it aims to do is to change the criteria for preferential procurement, because currently preferential procurement and you wanting to do business with the state is dictated on the basis of your skin color. And ultimately what that has resulted in is trickle-down redress, where we think, via osmosis, the masses on the ground are suddenly going to be able to benefit from this kind of legislation. And this aims to focus on price competitiveness as well as efficiency of service providers, and uses our Sustainable Development Goals model that we've adopted from the UN to try and introduce an alternative mechanism that empowers communities through corporate social responsibility from businesses, but at the same time we make sure that we get goods cheaper, more cost effective, and in a way that actually adds value to the services that we need to deliver.
Absolutely. A reminder to please like, share, comment on this post, share it with your friends and family so that they can be part of the conversation. Remember, information is power, and this is where you get it. Again, the only way we can vote the ANC out of government is to make sure that you are registered to vote. Please go on check.da.org.za to check if you are registered correctly. If not, we will help you through the process. I want to take it back to the ground. Karabo, over to you.
Nobody comes here. Democrats, South Africans, you can hear the mood here in the streets is absolutely electric. People are optimistic, people are excited, but at the same time, people are angry about what it is that this quota has to say about the future of their lives. So joining me for a conversation now is our DA Johannesburg Caucus leader, Ms. Belinda Kayser Ezionzonjuku. Ma'am, thank you for being here in the streets with us. Tell us, how does it feel to be here today?
It feels very good that we are here today to stand up for something that is so unfair, that is the potential to bring back job preservation in a democracy. Yeah. We can never allow that. So I'm very, very excited to be here to stand up against this reversed apartheid.
I mean, so earlier we had a conversation with the Tertius Simmers and Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis. And Tertius mentioned something very important about where we are right now, around District 6 and the impact it had in our liberation in South Africa. As a Khoi descendant, what does this mean for you?
This is it's actually very emotional, because during apartheid, the Khoi was disadvantaged. And even in a democracy, my descendants, the Khoi, were disadvantaged. We were not black enough during democracy, and we also were not white enough during apartheid. So we are double disadvantaged. As a Khoi descendant and as colored people, we really cannot allow this. We have to stand up. Just recently, we had the ANC doing their Nasispani election campaign in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, and we've seen colored kids standing, colored youth standing, only to be told they have to wait when they get to the front of the queue. We have people coming to tell us that some of their CVs have been thrown into the dustbin after they have been receiving it. So those are serious. It's unjust, it's unacceptable, and we have to stand up for it as the DA.
You're absolutely right, and I think for me, I'm even getting goosebumps as you're saying this, right? Because there's nothing as painful as living in a nation where you are told that just on the basis of the color of your skin, you need to be locked out of certain opportunities, right? So, but then tell us then, what are we as the DA trying to communicate to everyone at home by being on the streets today?
We're communicating as the DA that we believe in fair and just society, that everybody should be treated fairly and all jobs are equal. People must be treated fairly and not be discriminated. as a result of their jobs, of their race, because everything should be fairly. Jobs should not be preserved for certain races like in the past. We have to ensure that we are treated fairly, and we cannot be double disadvantaged. We have been disadvantaged before, we were excluded before. We cannot also, as colored people, be excluded, and Khoi descendants, colored people, be excluded in a democracy when everybody should be treated fairly.
Look, I mean, there are a lot of conversations around this hot topic right here, right? Exclusion is something that, I mean, the ANC themselves overthrew an apartheid government because they said that their laws were unjust and racist. So why, I mean, it's ironic that it's happening, right? But why do you think the ANC is so desperate to now want to call the racial card to unite, to divide South Africans?
When a liberation movement has lost its ability to serve the people, all the people, they are getting to race discrimination, and they want to continue using the race card to try and confuse the majority of South Africans, and they're trying to sideline and divide people across racial lines. And as the DA, we must fight against racial division that the ANC is trying to do. Basically, if you want to say, we've been divided along racial lines before, and now the ANC who fought against that want to divide and get votes and divide people by race as well. We can never accept that as the DA. Freedom, fairness, opportunity, and diversity must always be the cornerstone of our democracy.
There you have it, South Africans. That was Belinda Kayser coming live here in the streets of Cape Town. We are here, everybody's electric. We're standing together, united in our diversity, fighting against oppression and saying, no, not in our lifetime, we won't have this. Back to you in studio, Nazli.
Thank you, Karabo. As we've seen, the march has started. They are making their way to Parliament. Remember, shortly we will be hearing from DA Leader John Steenhuisen, so keep it locked. Matt, you were very excited when the DA Joburg caucus leader was speaking. Let's hear why.
So I think she made a very important point in saying that, you know, under the apartheid regime, coloured and Indian people weren't white enough, and our government has decided that they're not black enough. And I think that's just a very perverse way of looking at it. If we look at it across the board, despite what perceived differences there may have been, coloured and Indian people suffered under apartheid the same as other South Africans who were oppressed under the system did. And I think it's, you know, an invalidation of those people's feelings and their views on what happened to them to merely say, well, you don't count anymore. I mean, how are you supposed to, you know, live in a society where you're never good enough? I mean, we're all equal as South Africans. We shouldn't judge each other on the color of our skin, and we should obviously look at the content of our character in who we choose to associate with, who we choose to love, and so on and so forth. So why is it that we need to use race as a crude mechanism to divide us?
Absolutely. Deirdre, reactions?
You know, Nazli, sometimes I think that as South Africans that we're in a toxic relationship with the ANC in our country.
Too much.
And when you look at when you're in a toxic relationship, sometimes you're in that relationship for so long that you don't necessarily know what will happen once you leave. And the longer you're in it, you think to yourself, I've invested so much, I can't leave now. But eventually there's going to be a turning point, there's going to be a breaking point. We're going to have to tell yourself, you know what, I deserve better. I deserve, you know, to have a great well-being.
Absolutely.
I deserve to preserve my sanity. I deserve economic freedom. I deserve my independence. And as South Africans, we need to remain united. We need to remain united in the causes that we all believe in. We all want fairer access to jobs. We all want fairer access to water. We want quality education. We want quality healthcare. I mean, in South Africa, when we look at education, particularly and education outcomes, you see the Pearls literacy report that came out for South Africa. 81% of grade 4 school children cannot read for meaning. In the Western Cape, the reading rate is double that of the South African average, and it's also now the only province to have launched a comprehensive program to ensure that we reverse the learning losses of the COVID lockdowns, and we're spending 1.2 billion rand on our Back on Track program. It's these things that are going to make sure that South Africans have quality education, and we need to focus on those aspects in people's lives that will able to give them access instead of bean counting the way that we currently are doing in South Africa.
Yeah, Sally, anything you take out from what the Joburg Caucus leader said?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Matt's reaction, it also made me think of what Dr. Michael Cardo said in one of the pieces that he wrote, that these regulations basically reducing minorities to second-class citizens. And because what it does is to reduce them to a level of, inferiority in their own country by limiting opportunities where they could be allocated in. And I think when you look at what the forefathers of our democracy anticipated, they would be very ashamed of what the ANC government is now engineering through this piece of legislation. And it underscores why it is so important that the DA is leading this fight against them. It underscores why it is so important to continue to express our opposition and get the support that we've gotten so far of members of the public and civil society in fighting against them.
Yeah. Shali, when we look at the visuals, we see the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. We see many members of parliaments from across the country, members of the provincial legislature, councillors, but most importantly, activists and people from all walks of life in South Africa coming together to say enough is enough. Shali, what can people expect from today's march?
What people can expect from today's march, even seeing from the visuals, is the entire senior leadership of the DA is present on the ground, leading the march. The key highlight will be the address by the leader of the party, John Steenhuisen. But it's also encouraging to see, as you correctly identified, that, members of the public are in there, because this is just not a DA initiative. This is an initiative by South Africans who are quite frankly sick and tired of the continued use of racially divisive laws to divide our country, particularly at a time when all the focus should be going into fostering nation building, fostering reconciliation, and doing everything possible to ensure that we create the economic enabling environment that will create jobs, that will attract investment, and that will spur our country towards economic growth.
Yeah. I'm going to throw this question out to the panel. There are some people who say, what is the point of protesting? Why go out to the streets and make a noise? What difference will it actually make? I'll start with you, Matt.
Sure. So I think as South Africans, we've become complacent over the years. I think there was a lot of energy and excitement as our democratic government came in. But I think particularly over the last 10 to 15 years, things have become progressively worse and South Africans have lost hope. So we can't blame them for having lost hope. But it's not good enough to say that you've lost hope. Ultimately, you need to do something about it. If you want to change something, you've got to be involved. You've got to get behind a cause, and that cause is the DA. So the point of protesting and the point of actually making your opposition heard is so that you're able to have a stake in your country's future, in the decisions of your country's future. And if you decide that you're going to retreat from that process, then you're going to have nothing left after that, right?
Absolutely.
Now, there may be a small proportion of South Africans who have foreign passports and they can immigrate to the UK or to Australia or to any other part of the country. But the predominant, number of South Africans don't have passports for other countries. So we are confined to making this place work. So it's really important that we go out there, we register to vote, and we send the ANC to the dustbin of history, because that is what this country needs.
Absolutely.
And if we don't realize that it's within each of us to go out there and make our voice heard and to use the ballot box for change rather than violence, rather than any other form of regime change, then we are only going to have ourselves to blame. And that's why it's so critically important that we do protest, that we do make our opposition heard. And ultimately, we need to, and this actually comes from an interesting conversation I had in the Northwest the other day. No matter how much we work with civil society and with private role players to try and improve the conditions in places where the DA doesn't govern, there's only so much we can do. Ultimately, we need to make sure that we have a majority coalition or a DA government in place in order for us to be able to deliver services in an adequate fashion. And that's what it's down to.
I'm told that Karabo is ready for us, but quick, couple of seconds. Deirdre? No, protesting. Changes nothing. What do you have to say?
You know, Parliament is the seat of the legislature. And if you're a member of Parliament or a member of provincial Parliament, you are a lawmaker. Your three jobs is lawmaking, oversight, and public participation. But it is clear that the ANC is not willing to listen to the people of South Africa. They're not willing to listen to the voter. They're not willing to listen to their constituents. And the point of protesting is to organize, to mobilize, to apply pressure. And it's only through applying pressure that we're going to make sure that these laws, these regulations do not get passed, do not get implemented. And we need to make sure that we also register to vote for 2024 so we can put competent and capable provincial and national governments in place that will actually listen to the people of South Africa.
Yeah. Let's go straight to the ground. Karabo, over to you.
Believe it or not, that I will come the
Democrats in die straat is blou, die DA se seer blou, ons is hier nog steeds in die straat, and people are taking ownership, right? People are really enthusiastic, and another conversation we're having here on the ground is a conversation with our DA federal chairperson and the Western Cape Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Ivan Meyer, as well as our Cape Metro Democratic Alliance Youth Chairperson and Councillor in the City of Cape Town, Tammy Jackson. Dr. Meyer, Tammy, thank you for joining us. I'll start with you, Dr. Meyer. Ons is in die straat. Hoekom?
Dan ons is vandag hier in die strate in Kaapstad, want ons is moeg van die ANC se rasgebaseerde wetgewing. Hierdie wetgewing laat ons terugdink aan die nasionale party se apartheid rasgebaseerde wetgewing wat wil sê waar jy moet bly en vir watter poste jy kan aansoek doen. En daarom stap die Demokratiese Alliansie vandag hier in die strate, want die grondwet van Suid-Afrika bepaal dat ons moet nie rassigheid bevorder. So hierdie is 'n optog vir die beskerming van die fundamentele regte wat vervat is in die grondwet. Mense is moeg vir rasgebaseerde wetgewing. Mense is moeg dat die ANC nasionale regering hulle werksgeleenthede verminder, want ons gaan 600,000 werksgeleenthede verloor as gevolg van hierdie wetgewing wat die ANC reeds goedgekeur het, maar ons hierdie optog as 'n boodskap vir die ANC. Ons gaan dit nie duld nie, ons gaan dit nie toepas nie, en ons gaan dit stop in Suid-Afrika.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Tammy, let us be frankly honest. This law is a racist law. I'm sure you agree.
I agree with you 100%, Karabo. And what you are seeing behind me today is essentially the start of a massive defiance campaign against this racist act. What the ANC is essentially doing is trying to come back with old pre-1994 apartheid-style tactics, basically reducing individuals to fractions and decimal points. These are human beings whose lives are being affected by this racist act. This is exactly what the apartheid government did pre-1994. And what is so unjust about this act is that they are just repeating it, but under a different name. So we are here today to say that we reject this act in its entirety, and it must be completely scrapped.
100% you're right. Dr. Meyer, you are the Western Cape Minister of Agriculture. Tell us, how does this quotas act affect, one, food security in the agricultural sector, as well as water allocation? I'll hold the mic.
Well, what we are seeing here now is that the ANC has included race-based criteria for the allocation of water rights. Now, this will be devastating for the agricultural sector because agriculture needs water. And we will fight this in the court in South Africa because it will firstly have devastating impact on food production. More people will lose their jobs in the agricultural sector. More people will also lose their opportunity to farm. We will have less food production, more hunger as a result of this racial water allocation. It will be devastating to agriculture. In fact, it will destroy agriculture. And here in the Western Cape, we are responsible for 55% of South Africa's agricultural exports. So it will kill all our exports. So this is a dangerous law because it will give the minister powers which he doesn't have in law. So this regulation is illegal and unconstitutional. And as the Minister of Agriculture in the Western Cape, I now give notice to the ANC. I will see you in court.
That is amazing. But first of all, so the alternative, you've mentioned that is court, right? But what else is the DA in the Western Cape doing to make sure that there's an effective supply of water, but also to ensure that we secure our food provision?
Well, we have, for example, raised the dam level of the Brandvlei Dam. Just by doing that, we release water under irrigation for 4,600 hectares, more water for people. Also, we are doing maintenance on the canal in the lower Orivans River because the national government water affairs are absolutely missing in action, and we are now doing maintenance on the canal. But more important, we have started the biggest water irrigation system in Ebenezer for colored farmers living in Ebenezer. So our policies work for redress.
Okay, so Tammy, the people Dr. Meyer just spoke about now who are affected in this agricultural sector, they're not just numbers. These are mothers, these are fathers, these are children who are affected, Tammy. Just break down more for us, please. How much killing do race-based legislation and racist laws have to communities?
So Karabo, it's actually really quite simple. Just last month, June 2023, the quarterly employment statistics was released by Stats SA, and they basically proved to us that SA is currently experiencing a jobs bloodbath in this country. About 97,000 jobs were lost in the country between March 2023 and March 2022. That's a massive number, essentially equating to about 8,000 jobs being lost per month in this country. So if the country is already experiencing such job losses on a massive scale, one can only imagine the impact that this act is going to have. It's going to add further insult to injury. Another problem with this act is it basically gives the minister powers to make appointments in the private sector, in businesses, and gives the minister powers which is completely unjustifiable that he or she doesn't have. And that is it's completely uncalled for. Another problem is that the DA's research has estimated that about 600,000 jobs could possibly be on the line if this Amendment Act is actually adhered to by the private sector. So you can only imagine the dire consequences it's going to have.
You're absolutely right. There you have it from us here. There's still more to come. I am linking back to you in studio, Nazli.
Thank you, Karabo. It is incredible to see DA leadership, activists from all across the country come together with one message to say no to the ANC race quotas. Deirdre, I'm going to go to you first. What is your reaction? Dr. Ivan Meyer and Tammy speaking about how this could affect not only young people, but also the agricultural sector.
I saw, for example, Kathy Labaskagni, our provincial whip for the Western Cape in the NCOP on the ground. I'm seeing there's Mkita Sulelo, the background. I'm so excited for how people are coming together for this march today. I want to particularly talk about the agriculture sector, actually, and things that Dr. Ivan Meyer spoke about. If you look at the particular regulations that are facing us in terms of access to water, the agriculture industry uses about 60% of the water in South Africa. And according to these regulations, with the water allocations, the black people must now have 25%, 50%, 70% of an agricultural enterprise's ownership. And that's going to depend on the size of the farm, and that will also that will then say what your renewal on water licenses will be like. The problem with this is, South Africa has 1.3 million hectares of irrigation agriculture. That is an estimated market value of 780 billion rand. In the Western Cape particularly, there's 180,000 hectares of fruit orchards and an additional 70,000 hectares of secondary crops being irrigated. And this includes small farming communities. So something that you don't see in the regulations is the ANC doesn't mention where financing is going to come from for the transfer of ownership for some of these farms. And this is going to have a devastating effect on thousands of farm workers, because lack of access to water will mean that portions of farming area are going to be sold off in order to retain access to water. But this is not only it, Nazli. My suspicion is that there's already a long queue of cadres lined up to buy portions of successful farming area, because many of our farm workers, many of our farming communities, we don't have access to the capital that is required for the transfer of ownership that is put into these regulations. Absolutely. So what is going to happen is the rich is going to get richer, and those who should be benefiting from equity, from ownership within the agriculture sector are not going to benefit from these regulations.
Yeah, Sally?
I mean, one of the things that we have established now about the ANC is that every intervention in the economy is ultimately targeted at enriching a select group of political elites who have connections to the ANC and support the ANC. Those become the largest beneficiaries. So there is no wonder that there's serious concerns in, farming communities, that there are opportunistic cadres who are lining themselves up in order to fill in the holes that will be created by these interventions if they come to pass. But the other thing is the state's capacity currently to ensure uninterrupted supply of water in farming communities. Its performance there is very, very shallow, to the extent that the majority of farmers have gone and taken the initiative themselves to ensure that they drill their own boreholes and have alternative supply of water to irrigate, their farms, because they cannot rely on the state. Absolutely. So now the state is going the next step of encroaching on their ability to be able to look after their farms, and that will then mean it limits their capacity to produce the quantities that they need, because with limited water for irrigation is going to affect their capacity to produce at the extent and the level that they need. And ultimately, this is the ANC's destruction of agriculture and economic life.
Yeah. Matt, I want to maybe speak about your reaction to what Tammy was speaking about how, young people are going to be affected by these race quotas. Already we have such a high unemployment rate amongst young people. This is going to be devastating.
No, 100%. I mean, South Africa has one of the highest youth unemployment rates at 63.9% roughly. And I mean, that is a really, really scary number to look at. If you put that into real numbers, that's almost 1.6 million young people who sit without jobs. And then when you look at those who are not in education, employment or training, then you're looking at 34.3% of people who literally, their whole life consists of sitting on the streets or sitting at home if they are lucky enough to have a home and a shelter.
Absolutely.
And that is what their lives consist of. And ultimately, what the ANC government is doing is we're failing to equip people with the necessary education and skills in order to be able to access economic opportunity. So we're eventually going to find ourselves with a situation where majority of young people, as they move on in life, will never know the dignity of having actually got a job. They will never know what it's like to contribute towards their livelihood. They will always be passive recipients of the state. And that's really the future that we're looking at if we head on the current trajectory. And legislation and regulations like this just exacerbate the dire unemployment situation that we have amongst the youth. And I think there's a number of young people who are unregistered, have not gone out to make sure that they have voted or cast their ballot because they're hopeless, they don't feel like it's for them, or maybe they're not interested. Well, let me tell you that government is interested in you, the DA is interested in you, and it's so important that you use this as a means to try and catapult yourselves into dignified employment, education and training.
And if I may add to Matt's point, because he makes a very, very powerful point, there is a correlation between the conditions of unemployed people, particularly unemployed young people, and the government that is in charge. So the correlation between those conditions is that it is under an ANC government through its policies, regressive economic policies, that has led to the levels of unemployment that we find. So for any young person who finds themselves unemployed, it is the direct result of ANC economic policies. So the best fight back against that is for them to use their power and vote out the ANC by voting the DA.
Absolutely. Solly, let's talk about the timing of this new act and the introduction of the regulation. The ANC again is attempting to divide us according to race to the lead up of the 2024 elections. Are we surprised?
It's unsurprising. It has become characteristic of the ANC that when we get closer to an election, the ANC will introduce some, policy proposal that will culminate itself in a bill that it seeks to manipulate in order to galvanize its base, to attempt to showcase to them to be doing something that cares about their needs. But it's also manipulating the suffering and the desperation of poor people in our country. And by using this, it's going to inflame racial tensions in the country, because the only distinction between this law and previous, laws that were introduced by the apartheid government, it is only time. They look like them because they are racially exclusive and they are being used. The ANC's intention is to use this so that it can have some form of electoral carrot it can put in front of its voters or potential voters to say, hey, look, we now suddenly care about your plight, when it has failed to do so throughout the years that it has been in government. So the timing is consistent with every tactic by the ANC in the lead up to an election. It is politically expedient, it is political opportunism, and I just hope that every South African can see through the spin of the ANC so that we can get to a stage where we see spin for what it is and contrast that with the social impact bill that the DA has introduced, and we'll be able to see the genuine interventions that a government seeks to use in order to empower businesses and empower employers so that they are in a position to employ many more South Africans so that they can have the dignity of having a job in their lifetime.
Deirdre, we spoke about cadre deployment a little bit earlier, but it's a fact. The ANC has collapsed the public sector. And now it feels like they're coming for the private sector. Is this another avenue for cadre deployment?
Nazli, when you look at the four horsemen of the apocalypse legislation, the Employment Equity Amendment Act, the Bella Bill, the National Health Insurance, and the Expropriation Bill, they all have a common theme. And the common theme is the ANC has nothing left to steal.
Absolutely.
So they're coming for your power now. They're coming for your small business. They're coming for parents having a say in schools. They're coming for quality health care. They're coming for your title deed. That is the common thread through these legislation before the election. And the reason they're coming with this is because they have no program of governance to show their successes. In agriculture, for example, in the Western Cape in the past 2021-2022 financial year, the Agriculture Department supported 81 agribusinesses with market access and marketing services. It supported 20 agribusiness businesses with agro-processing initiatives. It supported 140 students graduating with agricultural qualifications. It supported 158 bursaries awarded in the province. That's just in the past financial year.
Wow.
I'm not even talking about the full term.
Wow.
You know, the department trained over 4,000 participants in skills development programs. 57 learners completed vocational programs. This does not even touch on programs such as load shedding and putting R1 billion for energy security aside from the province, where 60 million rand of that money will be put aside for load shedding packs so that the most vulnerable people in society in the Western Cape will be able to light, charge and heat when there is a blackout. And you know what, Leslie? A lot of provinces probably have a lot of similar things that the Western Cape is going through.
Yeah.
We have gone through drought, floods, fires.
Yeah.
We've gone through a COVID lockdown. We've gone through load shedding and locusts, particularly in my constituency. I've driven through locusts. I've literally driven through a locust swarm. And now we're coming with this legislation to take people's power away, to tell people that actually you are now going to have to decide in which province you want to go stay and in which sector you can work in and which job you're allowed to have. How can you even face your constituents on the ground as a lawmaker? How can you face the people, the voters of South Africa as a legislator, people who elected you into power? It is unfathomable.
I couldn't agree with you more. Matt, we heard from the DA Joburg caucus leader, and she will be addressing the march, so do stay tuned. Coloured communities in Johannesburg, or let's say in Gauteng, have been excluded from the latest employment scheme by Panyaza Lesufi.
Yeah, so our view on it is that the Nasi Spani program, which Lesufi has introduced, is nothing more than a catered deployment scheme.
Yeah.
You would see that the CVs were being processed at ANC offices outside ANC gatherings. There were videos of ANC members discarding community members' CVs.
Sweet.
And the sad thing is that almost 1.2 million people applied for those jobs, and there were only about 8,000 vacancies.
Madness.
And that in itself just shows you how chronic unemployment is, particularly in Gauteng. And I don't think we will see anything different on a provincial level as opposed to a national level with a race merchant like one Panyaza Lesufi. I mean, Desiree earlier spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And the key one there is the Bellable, and Panyaza Lesufi has been behind it. He cannot see anybody outside of their race or as an envoy of their race. And ultimately, he does not care about all communities in Gauteng. He's more interested in focusing on a narrow base that he wants to try and rile up for election campaign.
Yeah, well, they have nothing left, do they?
Nothing.
So
Nothing.
they must try all avenues.
Let's see a pankop, Nazli.
Dololo,
let's see a
But
pankop.
Nestle, I think the important point to remember is what was the essence of cadre deployment? Cadre deployment was an attempt by the ANC to take control of every level of society. And because the ANC has, over the last few years, started losing power, political power, in metros, you know, even though it has found a backdoor back into it, they've now resorted to desperately encroaching on the economic power of South Africans and trying to meddle in terms of who can employers employ into their spaces. It is the last desperate kick of a dying horse.
It makes me so angry to think about this. As you can see, we are ready to go live to the stage. The Democrats, South Africans, have landed in front of Parliament. Let's cross over.
When we have equal opportunity to create a better life. We are never free as long as the state fails to allow opportunity for all. Making a law to force the hand of free enterprise is actually to kill free enterprise. And it's to kill ultimately opportunity for all of our people across our country. And I'll take one example. Eskom. The ANC destroyed electricity in our country. The elite today can actually provide energy for themselves. The middle class, through the assistance of solar panels, can do the same, while the vast masses of all of our people are sitting in darkness. This is inequality brought to all of us by a failed ANC. And I want to tell the ANC today that as the Western Cape, we are telling them, you cannot legislate equality. You can only cultivate equality for all of our people on a fair basis. The playing field will only become equal for all our people if we stop what the ANC are trying to do with this act and its frameworks as well. We all need to shout loud and say that we are activists for equality. Equality for all of our people, no matter where you live in our province, in South Africa. The ANC has a policy and a plan for equality that will ultimately constrain the people of our country. While our party, the government in waiting, and a plan for equality that will encourage and set free of all of our people, no matter where you live in the Western Cape. We know, and that's why I showed you the building here behind us. The ANC only creates misery wherever their hand touches at the moment. They are trying to kill free market, and they are making more and more people dependent on them again. That is not why we fought for freedom. That is not why our people want true freedom in their lifetime. We are well aware that the ANC has a plan to destroy all chances of a better life for all of our people. But there is hope, and that hope is the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance has a plan to create opportunities, but ultimately to ensure that our people have a better life moving forward. The ANC, as we know it, are stuck in the past. Hulle sit vas in die verlede soos 'n soutpilaar wat moet verkrummel. They are living backwards, while the DA, the government in waiting, is looking forward. So let's move forward. 2024, in less than 10 months, we can show the ANC what we all think, that we will give power to the people. But above all, hou op met rasse quotas. Geef vir almal 'n gelyke kans. No to quotas. No to quotas. No to quotas. Thank you. Amandla.
Thank you, Minister Summers. Yeah. Viva dia viva! That's it. The slogan of the PA say last hope, but the DA gives hope through service delivery. Forward DA, forward! Dit is so, né? Die DA gee hoop deur ons dienslewering wat ons gebied aan mense. Ons volgende spreker op die program is Belinda. Is Belinda hier? Belinda? Thank you. Yeah, come let's cheer our Belinda. Give us a song there just to cheer our Belinda when she's rising the podium. Thank you.
Kancane
It felt good to land in a blue DA city of Cape Town. I would like to acknowledge our federal leader, John Steenhuisen, the only leader that cares about fixing South Africa. Our federal chairperson, Ivan Meyer, Western Cape provincial leader, Tertius Simmers, Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Lewis, Gauteng provincial leadership, and all leadership from all other provinces and fellow activists. How happy I am to be here to march against the injustices of this useless quota system of apartheid that the ANC is trying to sneak back during a time when we are in democracy. We must never forget the injustices of apartheid that are job preservation based on the race of people. As colored people, ons was nie wit genoeg in apartheid nie. Nou is ons nie swart genoeg in 'n demokrasie nie. Genoeg is genoeg. Ons kinders kry nie werk nie. In Gauteng het hulle rye op rye gestaan met Panyaza Lesofie Nasi-Spani election campaign. Toe hulle voor in die ry kom, word hulle CV's gevat en in die asblik gegooi. That's nonsense. It's unacceptable. We can never accept this type of injustice. Ons kinders verkoop hulle siele aan drugs, want as die werk nie. Go to Westbury in Johannesburg. Go to New Clare in Johannesburg. Go to Eldorado Park in Johannesburg. You will see people, children, our youngsters are standing on the street corners, either selling or using drugs because they have to sell their souls because there's no jobs. The ANC just want the colored vote. They do not want you. They want your vote. They want your vote to continue with corruption. Say no to their food parcels during elections. Say no to their chicken licken and the KFC during elections. We are tired of the ANC using us for their vote, for a vote, and after that they forget about us. Genoeg is genoeg. We can never allow apartheid in the form of job preservation back into our country during a time of a democracy. We can never allow coloreds and Indians who were previously excluded to be yet again excluded again. We can never allow thousands of people to be without jobs because of this racist act that is bringing back apartheid in the form of job preservations. We will never allow that. Genoeg is genoeg. Pansi ANC, pansi. Pansi ANC, pansi. We must fight for fairness. We must fight for equal jobs. We must take back our power and stop the ANC cadre deployment nonsense. Now more than ever, I want you to please go and register to vote. Get your neighbors, get your cousins, get your brothers. Kry hulle almal dat hulle gaan register om te vote vir die DA, the only party that stand for freedom, fairness, opportunity, and diversity, which is the cornerstone of our democracy. Halala DA, halala! Halala DA, halala! Pansi ANC, pansi! Thank you.
Dis lekker mense. Dis lekker. Wonderlike gees wat hier heers. Ek het net 'n aankondiging om te maak. Yes. Democrats, it has come under our attention that here is maybe a guy who's pocketing our cell phones and so on. Because here's a few phones already been gone out of somebody's pocket. So just look after your possessions, please. But don't let this spoil our day. Don't let this spoil our day. It's a blue day here in Cape Town. Viva DA, viva!
Oh,
ons weet ons is almal opgewonde. Ons is almal, ons sien die change is coming next year, 2024. Dit kom. Yay! And I want to introduce to you our federal chairperson, Dr. Ivan Meyer. Yay! That's lekker mense. Oh, babu. Yay! Yeah. Voel it. Oh. That's it.
We are now here in the best run city in South Africa. Thank you to our Mayor, Jordan Lewis. Thank you to all our councillors, our mayors, our activists, our foot soldiers. Thank you to our leaders that are here from other provinces. They came all over South Africa to march into this place that drafted race-based policies. We brought down the National Party. We will bring down the ANC. But friends, I brought with me the Constitution of South Africa, because chapter 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is based on non-racialism. And the principle of non-racialism is also contained in the preamble of the Constitution. And our preamble says, we are united in our diversity. One of the principles of the Democratic Alliance is non-racialism, drawing from the Constitution of South Africa, because we in the DA, we believe that race divides and unity brings people together through diversity. People are asking us, why are we marching here today? If your name is Johnny Plaatjes, the ANC race laws will say, you are colored, we have too many coloreds here, go work there. If your name is Akira Pillay, the ANC race laws will say, sorry, Zakira, your application must go province. There are not enough Indians. We don't employ Indians in this industry. But if your name is Piet Versaghi, they will say, Piet, we have too many people in this town. Go to Pondoland and apply there. Leave your family and go where the ANC tell you you must go. But if your name is Moses Kumalo, the ANC race laws will say you cannot apply because we have enough of your race. Go and work in Uppington. And you apply for a post in Brakpan. The ANC will say, sorry, Mari, you have the wrong skin in this sector of the economy. If your name is Charmaine van der Merwe, your skin color will be used and your name will be removed when you apply for a job, because the racial quote don't want your race. Race-based employment is targeting everyone. Colored, is the target. Everyone will be punished by the racist employment laws. And this march today demonstrates our diversity. Everyone is the target, and everyone has the responsibility to stop these race-based laws. This march demonstrates our diversity. The ANC is race drunk. We are drinking their race Kool-Aid. After 30 years to still drink race Kool-Aid, today we are saying to the ANC, you are going to be voted out of the power next year. They want to implement more race-based laws to discriminate against Indians, coloreds, blacks, and white people. They are subjecting us to racial engineering. They haven't learned anything from the National Party. Race-based but the ANC is an ethnic, racial, nationalist party. We believe your skills must determine your future. We believe your competencies must determine your future. We believe your values, your culture must determine your future, your work ethic. The country is broken. We need all the skills to fix and rescue South Africa. We don't believe it determine your future. And now the ANC have published draft water regulations based on race. As the Minister of Agriculture in this province, it will destroy agriculture, it will destroy food security, it will create more unemployment, more people will lose their jobs because of this racist laws of this ANC government. To the ANC National Minister of Water Affairs, I now give notice. I will see you in court. I will fight to bring down that water regulations. I want to conclude, need and not race must determine your future. Opportunity and not race determine your future. Your skills must use must determine your future. I'm now calling on all the people across South Africa, wherever you are watching, to unseat the ANC. If you are Northwest, join us to unseat the ANC. If you are in Limpopo, join us to unseat the ANC. If you are in Mpumalanga, join us to unseat the ANC. If you are in the Free State, join us to unseat the ANC. If you are in the Northern Cape, Bali, join us to the ANC. If you are in the Eastern Cape, join us in stopping the ANC. And if you are for the Western Cape, you have already stopped the ANC in this province. To the people who are watching abroad on our YouTube channel, Facebook Live, whether you are in London, New York, Japan, Tokyo, Australia, wherever you are around the world, we know it's prevented you to become here. Join us on the virtual platform because we want to bring down this government that chased you away because of the color of your skin. Wherever you are watching from, New York, in London, in Germany, in Copenhagen, wherever you are, join this march. We are taking a stand against race-based laws. Take a stronger stand to unseat the ANC in the government of South Africa. Vote them out and throw their race-based laws in the bin. Down with ANC policies, down. Down with ANC racism, down. Down with ANC racism, down! Down with ANC racism, down! People, it was in the 1980s when people took to the streets and brought down the National Party apartheid policies. We must do the same. In next year's election, so register, vote DA, and bring this government down. Down, ANC government, down. Down, racial quotas, down. People, this is a historical moment in the history of South Africa. And I want to thank our leader, John Steenhuisen, for leading this march, for defending the Constitution, because this is much more than just simply a march. It is about protecting the Constitution. This is foundational to the future of South Africa. Amanda! Thank you.
Ja, baie dankie aan ons federaal Dr. Ivan Meyer. Ek gaan aan u voorstel ons volgende spreker. Niemand as ons federale leier. Niemand as ons federal leader. U hoor my? Nobody else than our federal leader. Nobody else than our federal leader. John Steenhuisen. Yay! This day will be remembered. In the Salon Dora.
Viva DA, viva! Pambili DA, Pambili! Pansy race quotas, Pansy! Forward to 2024, forward! To DA victory, forward! Goeiemorgen, Sanibonani, Molweni. It's great to be with all of you wonderful Democrats in the streets. Dis te danke aan julle, ons aktiviste en ons raadslede en lede van die parlement, dat hierdie die beste regstad in die hele land is. Dankie aan ons burgemeester. Ek is net 'n bietjie jammer dat ons sit sal ons net so die ANC uitbrand uit die regering. Dis 'n betekenis van Dames en heren, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that we are in the midst of the worst unemployment crisis. 7 out of 10 young people, many of them graduates, don't have work. The national employment rate is 40%. There are now more South Africans that live are facing the worst cost of living crisis we've seen in a generation. So let me ask you this. How many people here today are paying more to feed their families than they did 2 years ago? How many people here are paying more to get to work or to get their children to school than they were 2 years ago? How many people here feel poorer today than they did 2 years ago? What is the ANC doing about this? Luto, aiko, nothing. Instead of growing the economy, 600,000 of our citizens lose their jobs based on nothing other than the color of their skin. They've introduced race quotas for water that's going to kill food security in the country. And they all say, oh, this is only the DA's making a noise about this. Well, I'm proud we're making a noise about it, because these other parties, the Greens and the Oranges, they come and say they represent the people, maar hulle is nergens in hierdie saak nie. Hulle is nie, dis die DA wat is in die howe. Dit iets daaroor. Ons sit nie soos 'n blaffende hond in die hoekie en chunk en chunk en chunk. Ons doen iets om hierdie raskwotas uit te skop en seker te maak dat almal het gelyke kansse in ons wonderlike land. How many people here know pick and pay? Well, let me read to you the warning that was issued by the chairman of Pick and Pay just last week. And this is what he said. This many companies and foreign investments and which our economy depends. About the race quotas on water, he said that it had a huge potential to impact on food security, ruin farms and undermine the value of existing farms, thus also creating a banking and economic crisis. It's not only the DA sounding the alarm, South Africans across the board are putting the red light on. Who will suffer because of these race quotas? Democrats, this act will completely ban the employment of coloured and Indian South Africans in certain provinces and sectors. It says in black and white. And Fakile Mbalula, he's dreaming. He's dreaming. He says, oh, that's not what the act says. It says it in black and white. The quota for employment of coloured people in the agricultural sector in Limpopo and in Mpumalanga is 0.0. 0.0. It's not me making that up. It's in the quota. And what about here in the Western Cape? According to the research done by Solidarity recently, it will force, if it is implemented, it will force 1 out of every 3 coloured South Africans to lose their jobs in this province. 1 out of 3. Look around you. 1 out of 3 of you will lose your job if these race quotas become law. Maar ons almal onthou die ANC 'n paar jaar gelede gesê het dat breinmense is overrepresented. Overrepresented. Wat sê ons daaroor? Dis 'n woord wat Thandi Modise gebruik het, maar ek kan nie dit gebruik want ons is op die televisie. Hier sien ons nou die gevolgsmense skop in die kop terwyl ons op die grond is. Dis nie 'n regering wat gee om vir die mense nie. Dis 'n regering wat werk teen die mense elke dag. Now many of you know I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal. Ons het nie Tafelberg nie, maar ons het die Drakensberg. And when I was there, I was in Chatsworth and I walked around the market. The ANC's race quotas will destroy that market. Even though 60% of the people who live in Chatsworth are Indian, the quotas say that less than 2% of the people who work in the retail sector in KwaZulu-Natal are allowed to be of Indian descent. But the other big lie that the ANC is spreading out there is that this act is designed for black South Africans. Just like they promised that BEE would be broad-based and empower black South Africans, when all it's done is make a small group of people rich. People like Edwin Saudi, who's paying for the deputy president to live in a 30 million rand mansion. That's paying and making sure that we got a president to go and buy buffalo for millions of rands. Many of the president's buffalo are worth more than the houses that you live in. Dis 'n skande. Hoe kan dit wees? Hoe kan dit weet waar kinders gaan na die bed honger en ons sit met mense wat geld steel elke dag van die beursies van die mense in ons land? Ons moet hulle uitskop. Ons het 'n nuwe regering nodig. 'n Regering wat gee om vir die mense. 'n Regering wat stoot nie mense net van die pad af met hulle blou ligte en swart BMW's. Wat mense skop by die kant van die pad, want hulle het nie te vinnig uit die pad gekry het. Dis die arrogansie van hierdie regering. En daar's een manier om met arrogansie te deel, en dis by die knie af te kap. En jy doen dit met jou stem in 'n verkiesing. Ons gaan hulle by die nek knap voor komende verkiesing. Black South Africans are going to suffer because of this act as well. And it's there as not making it up. The quota for black females in the Northern Cape management is 14.7%. What government reduces citizens to being a decimal point? What sort of government does that? This means that a real estate company in Kimberley that is 100% black female owned will fall foul of these rules. They will be persecuted of up to 10% of their turnover, and they will not be able to do any business with any government department. This is the punishment that the ANC is wreaking on us. They're not doing the hard work of creating jobs. They're doing the easy work of destroying jobs, making our people poorer and ruining our future even more than they have already. But there is one group who will benefit from this act. There is a group that will benefit. But it's not the poor. It's not the skilled workers who are locked out of opportunity. It's not our youth spend a fortune to study, but daar's geen werk vir hulle nie. These laws are designed to benefit one group and one group only. And that is the connected cadres in the ANC. That's who's going to benefit from these laws, because we've seen what they've done with cadre deployment already. Hoe hulle mense ingesit, hulle bandjies vir boeties, hulle vriende en hulle families, hulle side chicks wat hulle werk kry daar in die regering. Dis die mense wat die geleenthede het in ons land. Dis nie ons mense, dis die mense op die grond nie. Dis die rampokkers en die mense wat net steel elke dag van hulle lewe. Those are who are going to benefit. This is not empowerment or equality. It's about how the ANC can get more power and control over your life. They've already switched off your lights. They're coming for your water. They're coming for your child's education. And they're coming for every aspect of your life, including your private business that they now want to get in and control and make sure that they can put their own cadres into your business so that you would have to then help them get rich instead of empowering more people. But we're here today om 'n baie sterk boodskap uit te stuur aan mense, nie net hier in die Weskaap, maar rondom ons wonderlike land. Om te sê dat genoeg is nou genoeg. Ons is siek en sat van hierdie regering wat geen nie om vir ons mense. Ons is siek en sat van die steel en die korrupsie van hierdie regering. Siek en sat van stories elke dag hoe hulle ons geld gebruik om hulle lewe beter te maak langs die pad, sonder werk, sonder geleenthede. Ons kinders sit by die huis en hulle geen werk of geleenthede. Want hierdie mense agter ons het dit gesteel en hulle sal nie ophou steel nie, knie klap in die komende verkiesing. But we need guidance. Guidance and the father of our nation, Nelson Mandela. And he said in 1993, if the ANC does to you what the apartheid government has done to you, you must do to the ANC well, this is now the time. This is now the time to do to the ANC what they did to the apartheid government. And that's to get rid of them, get them out, get in, like we've done in Cape Town, like we've done in the Western Cape, like we've done in Midvaal, like we're doing in KwaZulu-Natal with Chris Pappas. And let me tell you, for us all to work together, because this law is an assault on all of us. It's time now for saamstaan. Saamstaan sal ons sterk maak. Toe kom die ANC wou ons verdeel in klein kampies van bruin mense en Indiese mense en wit mense. Dis hulle doel. Want as hulle ons kon verdeel, nie saam nie om teen hulle te staan. So ons moet nee sê. Ons sal nie verdeel word deur hierdie regering en hierdie party. Ons sal saam staan om teen hierdie dinge op. En ons het nou 'n kans om hulle uit die nasionale regering te kry. We already got them out of government here in Cape Town. And look at your city, how beautiful it is today. We've got them out of the Western Cape. And look how beautiful your province is. Crime down 14%. 360,000 jobs up in the last quarter. This is a province that's working. The rest of South Africa is breaking, and this province is working. Why? Because it's always better where the DA is. And we have a chance, like we rescued and liberated the Western Cape, to do the same at a national level next year. And that's what the Moonshot Pact is all about. It's about bringing people together. It's about bringing civil society together. It's about bringing people who care about the future of the country together. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. We care about you, each and every one of you, and we want to build a better future for you. If every single person here today can get their families to go and register. There's 13 million people in this country who are not registered. We've got to go out and find every one of those 13 million people and make sure that they register. 14 million people who haven't voted in the last 2 elections. Ons moet daai mense vind en hulle uitbring op verkiesingsdag om te stem. Because the most powerful weapon that anybody has in a democracy is your vote. It's your vote. It's more powerful than a bullet. It's more powerful than a brick. And believe you me, it's more powerful than the ANC. We can defeat them with the power of the vote. So if you're watching today, go to check.da.org.za. Check your registration status. Register if you're not. And tell your family and friends to go to the website and make sure that you are registered. Daarmee kan ons daai sterk boodskap uitstuur dat ons is siek en sat van die ANC en ons stuur die boodskap baie duidelik uit. Rasquotas se moer. We are all South Africans. We're not black people. We're not white people. We're not colored people. We're not Indian people. We are South African people. And South Africa, as our constitution says, belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. God bless South Africa en Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika. God seën ons land. Dankie almal.
Baie dankie. Forward, DA, forward! Viva, DA, viva! Dis lekker mense! Saam is ons beter en beter is ons saam. 2024, ons is gereed. Ja. Kan ons net Democraten, kan u allemaal net terugbeweeg? Can you all move this side? Marshals, can you please assist so that the truck can get in front? We are going back to where we come from. Thank you. Ja, hierdie dag sal onthou raak. Hierdie môre sal onthou raak. Hierdie môre sal onthou raak, mense.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Nyati, the interim DA Youth Federal Leader. South Africa is suffering from load shedding, unemployment, and no access to opportunities for young people. We have an opportunity to change this situation by registering to vote for a government that will not be a danger to society. I urge each and every person to go out and register to vote. You can register by going to check.da.org.za. Check.da.org.za. Let us take back our power and give it to the people. Power to the registered.
Hoi hoi, Democratic Alliance, hoi hoi. Absolutely amazing speech from our federal leader, John Steenhuisen, the incoming president of South Africa, a true leader and what South Africa needs. We heard beautiful speeches from other colleagues as well. John, tell us, so what did we want to achieve today? Do you think today was a success?
I think it's a success. I think we've been able to unite Indian, white, black, coloured South Africans together against race quotas. Yep. We don't want race quotas. We want real jobs. We want opportunities to be able to grow our country, and that means together. South Africans can't be reduced to being just a skin colour. Yeah. We've all got a contribution to make, and we should all be allowed to make it.
You're absolutely right. But then people want to know then, if not race quotas, then what, John?
Well, you've got to go and look at our great policy that we've got called our economic justice policy. It sets out exactly what the problem is, and it sets out how we're going to solve it. You don't fix inequality and problems like we have by managing inequality of outcome. You manage equality of opportunity. If every home, if it's to a decent education, a job, a quality healthcare system, good public transport system, a roof over their heads, and a safe, secure environment, you don't need to manage the equality of outcome because everybody would be able to be on the same equal footing. Our economic justice policy will fix South Africa. The ANC's policies have increased unemployment. They've made black households poorer, elite very, very wealthy, and inequality has widened, it hasn't narrowed.
You're absolutely right, John. So let's talk about election 2024. You have called on opposition parties to unite to topple the ANC. For those who've never heard of this before, tell us briefly, what is the Moonshot Pact and why is it important?
Well, it's important because it's 5 minutes to midnight in South Africa. We don't have the luxury of waiting till 2029. We don't have the luxury of another 5 years of ANC government. And we certainly can't afford 5 years of ANC and EFF government. So the Moonshot to stop school, to focus on fixing the things that are broken, with working together to be able to make our country a better place. And for the first time, we have a credible path to victory. ANC EFF million people who've not voted in the last 2 elections, or those 13 million people who are not even registered, to go and register and to come out and vote. The ANC only got 5.something million election. If we can just get 10% of those 14 million and 13 million, we're on the road to a new majority in South Africa and a government that's going to work for the people and not for the politicians.
There we have it. We want a blue government. Their love is good.
There you have it, a lot of energy on the ground. The kind of energy we saw on the ground today must be the same energy voters bring to the ballot box in 2024. Matt, your reactions to the DA leaders' speeches and all the leaders on stage?
So I think it was a very successful march. It was, I was keen to see them touch on all the key issues that we have with this legislation, as well as proposing our alternatives. And I think that was very, very important. And it was also nice to see the excitement on, the marchers' faces, when our leadership got up there to address them. And I think it really shows that we are a very diverse organisation. We're an organisation that's rooted in communities and that's active on the ground. And I think that comes through in today's march. And now we just need to intensify that campaign as we move along. I think Solly mentioned earlier we have a court challenge that's also dealing with these regulations, and we just need to continue to apply the pressure to make sure that we can get rid of these ridiculous regulations.
Yeah, Deirdre, we heard Dr. Ivan Meyer saying he's going to court. He'll see the ANC in court.
Yes, weet jy Nazli, my ouma Sissie Frida, almal op die straat moes haar Sissie Frida genoem. En sy het altyd vir my gesê, as jy nie wil leer nie, dan moet jy voel. So if the ANC doesn't want to listen, then we must vote them out of the union buildings. And we must march to the union buildings. And we are ready, Naz. We are ready. We are here with our measuring tape. Ons is reg om te kom measure van die curtains. Ons is reg, Naz. And we must make sure that every single person is registered to vote correctly for the 2024 election, national and provincial election, to make sure that the Democratic Alliance is put into the union buildings so that bad laws like these would not see the light of day.
Yeah, Solly, we are taking Deirdre and her measuring tape.
Yes. What's going to be curtains measure?
We're going to measure the curtains. Solly, your reaction?
Yeah, look, what was great for me was the consistency in terms of highlighting the key issues that as the DA we have with this piece of legislation, but also seeing some of the placards from the members of the public and DA supporters who were out there, because, the most important thing is that people just want to have a fair chance at having jobs. People just want to be treated equally, and people want their skills and their expertise to be recognized more than anything. And that was consistent when you looked at the placards, even the messaging from the party. And everyone who came out today played their part. And the most important thing is, over and beyond today, there is more that needs to be done. The fight can't be a one-day event, and then, we return to our communities and our spaces, and then we don't continue applying this pressure, because the DA's court action will go ahead. The fight in Parliament will go ahead. What we need now is for residents and members of the community to also continue playing their part. Mobilize in their streets, mobilize in their communities, social clubs. Let's get everyone who qualifies to vote registered, so that we've got the numbers when the election comes next year to vote for a caring government, for a government that treats residents for who they are based on the content of their character and prioritizes real empowerment and not discrimination.
Yeah, again, all the energy you saw on the ground. We need to mobilize. We need to get everybody we know and make sure that they get to the ballot box in 2024. We have real hope, South Africa, in this election, and a real chance to unseat the ANC. We can rescue South Africa. 2024 is the most important election in our democracy thus far. South Africans, we are at a crossroad, and it is a make or break moment for our country. Don't lose hope. The DA has a plan to rescue South Africa. We have demonstrated that where we govern, we can turn things around and change people's lives. Make sure you are registered to vote. Please go to check.da.org.za and we will guide you through the process. Remember, you must be registered in the area you currently live in, or you cannot vote. Please check that you are correctly registered. Check.da.org.za. Thank you to all our panelists for being here today. Thank you to those who marched in the streets of Cape Town and to those who tuned in for this broadcast. My name is Nazli Sharif, signing out. Sharp and away.
In this election, only the registered have the power. If you're tired of load shedding, register to vote. If you're tired of corruption, register to vote. If you're tired of the rising cost of living, register to vote. And if you're tired of a government that's continuously working against you, register to vote. Go to check.da.org.za and let's give power to the registered.